What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Michael Attias of CaterZen. And Michael, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. Since this is a great SaaS company, this is part of the SaaS, Top SaaS series and EO series, we have a mutual friend who's amazing, Robert Hartline. He founded CallProof. He's also in EO Nashville. He talked about in the episode growing his company, Absolute Wireless, from 10 million to over 100 million in sales and all of the great things and all of the challenges too. So that was a great episode. Sujin Patel, founder of Mailshake, talked about how he grew to over 70,000 users. That was a great episode. Gavin Zaklinski talked about building Acuity scheduling. It's interesting, Michael, he was a kind of a split testing master. So he really walked through kind of the customer journey and how he helped so people wouldn't go off of his software. He eventually then went on to sell to Squarespace. It was interesting. Eugene Levin of SEMrush talked about their SaaS product being used by over 4 million marketers. That was also a great episode as well. This episode is brought to you by Rise25. At Rise25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution. And Michael, you know this, we're kind of like the magic elves that run in the background and make it look easy for the host and the company so they can create amazing relationships, amazing content, but most importantly, run their business. You know, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships, and I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I have found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you have questions about podcasting, go to rise25.com and let us know if you need anything. I'm excited to introduce Michael Attias. After 40 years, Michael, I know you were an overnight success, but really it started back when you were a dishwasher. And at 16, you worked your way up to owning a barbecue franchise. And you learned how to grow catering and sales with direct marketing. I geek out on direct marketing, so I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. And also you've built in some as direct marketing into CaterZen so people can use that to grow their business. He actually went on to teach other restaurants how to double their profits from catering. And then bootstrapped a catering software company, which we're talking about, CaterZen.com, with only $30,000. Michael is CEO and founder of CaterZen. It turns restaurants, catering, chaos into calm, right? And so basically, I'll talk a little bit about the catering software. It can handle your drop-off, your full service, event-based business. It helps with everything from the sales to the marketing to operations, and helps restaurants save time, grow sales, and increase profits. What else do they want, right? So, Michael, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeremy.
So just start off, and this will be a video version as well for people. So I'm going to share the CaterZen website here as we're talking, but just talk about CaterZen and what you do to start off.
Like you mentioned, first of all, the research you do is like 1,000 times better than most people who interview me. You actually looked up my stuff and know a little bit more, probably more than my family knows about me. So basically, we are an ERP for catering companies. So we handle everything that you could need to run your business. We have online ordering. We have order taking in the back end if someone calls up. We have proposal creation, electronic contracts. We have BEOs, which is like the game plan for a big event, like a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a big event. We have a delivery router manager. We have kitchen production planning, and that's paper as well as dynamic real-time updated tablets. We've done some really cool stuff in that space. Email marketing, full CRM, accounts receivable, light accounting. So literally it runs your whole business. And I built it that it had to be simple yet robust, because you're not dealing with a bunch of techie guys, you're dealing with restaurant people. They need to focus on making food, not learning how to, deal with complex software. So we try to make everything very intuitive, very easy to work with, and simple.
I mentioned really it helps save time, grow sales, and increase profits. And I know you have a strong direct response background. And I'm wondering what is built into CaterZen that helps people grow sales that is kind of direct response related?
So we actually have direct mail letters that you can send through our software. So you can send out
That's
a thank you
awesome.
letter. You can send out birthday letters with the certificate. We have loyalty programs, referral programs. We have reactivation letters. We have also loyalty through a third party through e-cards. Because if you do a lot of business as a medical rep, you don't want $1,000 a year in barbecue. You might want to use those gift cards to pay for your kids' Christmas presents or what have you. We have a database, CRM that you can look up. Well, I'll give you a perfect example. You place an order. The easiest order is a repeat order. And when I had my restaurant, let's say I did a big event, 500-person event for a company picnic. Most people are like, okay, that was great. Maybe they'll call back next year. I would make a Xerox copy. I'd put it in a file folder that was January through December. And when the month came that I was supposed to call them back, I just had that piece of paper and I'd call them. Now, when you place an order in CaterZen, it says, do you want to schedule a rebooking reminder? When you do a proposal, do you want to schedule a follow-up on the proposal? Because a lot of people will send you proposals and they never follow up, right? Somebody told me once that their boyfriend who was in sales says the fortune's in the follow-up. Love that line. It needs to be a bumper sticker, a t-shirt, because it's really true. How often have we called somebody to get a price or do something and then never follow up with us? We have catering inquiry forms or forms you can build in your website, email marketing. We do have a lead gen system that we don't really sell anymore. But it's there because we found people don't want to work. Honestly, they want you to do the work for them. Even our proposals, they're not regular proposals. They're beautiful proposals that look like, they were graphically done, not just an Excel spreadsheet. Online ordering, we have the ability to build upsells into menu items, as well as when someone's taking an order on the phone. We call them force upsells. So you're online, you order a package. Let's say it's a taco bar. Do you want to order drinks? You have to answer the question, no, thank you, or yes, $1.95 a person, right? And the same thing, if you've got people taking phone orders, you've got to assume that they're not going to ask those questions. So now they have to at least check the box
because
it's
they're
a force
filling it out on CaterZen, so they're forced
right.
to actually be prompted for the upsells.
Yeah. Believe it or not, everything that touches the customer is marketing. So for instance, we have the ability to do billing. Like, how's that marketing? Well, if you're anti-admin and you order in lunch from a lot of people, it's a lot easier to have somebody who's going to send you a bill and accounting can deal with it than get a credit card, cut a check, what have you. When I had my restaurant, we had $25,000 in outstanding receivables on average. In 14 years of owning the restaurant, maybe wrote off a couple of $1,000s. And so now we even have collection systems. So there's probably more than I even remember, honestly.
I want to talk, Michael, I know you have a book and you talk about catering multipliers. And what's interesting is obviously, when I research you and what you implement, help restaurants implement with CaterZen, this applies to any business, right? So if you're listening like, well, I'm not a restaurant, it doesn't matter. Like if you have like those follow-up systems. So can you talk a little bit about the 17 multipliers? You don't have to talk about all of them, but what are a few of the ones that help these companies increase sales that anyone can use?
Saying thank you. I learned this from a college professor, and he taught me the value of a handwritten thank you note. And it's amazing the people who will invite you back or do more things for you when you just say thank you. And you know, thank you has a lot of different meanings. It could be thank you with a card. It could be a thank you gift. You know, you go to stay at someone's house, you bring them a gift. And that's a big one. Rewarding people for their business. We talked about follow up, whether it's you're rebooking an event, calling people before their event to confirm so you don't lose the sale. That you can upsell. Hey, I noticed, Jeremy, you got lunch coming in tomorrow and there are no desserts. Did you want to order dessert? Oh, yeah. So there's a million things that you can do to increase those sales, right? Like if you go to I don't know, maybe it's under marketing, our proposals don't look like regular proposals. Our designers do something. Go under solutions and look under sales. See those proposals?
Yeah.
That doesn't look like the typical catering proposal you could get. So we'll do a cover. We'll do a cover page. Yeah, just go to the graphics right there. We'll do a cover page. We'll do a frequently asked questions. We'll do testimonials to put in there. So all good things in direct marketing you should have in your proposal, as well as pictures of things you do, because you might get the proposal and go, oh, you got a chocolate fountain. I didn't know y'all do chocolate fountains. What does that cost? And what we recommend is you create a set of proposal documents based on the niche you're catering in, right? So we only do one set for people. We can do other sets, or they can have their own designers do it. It's pretty simple. But, you know, what better way to sell a holiday catering than to have something that looks branded for a holiday catering, or branded for a company picnic, or just a generic proposal? This looks way better than anybody is going to give you out in the marketplace.
I want to stick on proposals for a second. I have a lot of different companies on, whether you're a restaurant, whether someone's a digital agency, and people are sending out proposals. And I don't want to gloss over this because maybe it comes second nature to you, but what it should be in a proposal. So you mentioned testimonials is a key element for a proposal. Pictures, maybe multimedia videos, anything else that
I guarantee. You know, so I started studying direct mail and direct marketing under Jay Abraham and Dan Kennedy. And how do you guarantee a catering, right? So we did the 120% guarantee. We're going to come out and we're going to feed your crew. If we run out of food, you don't owe us, and we'll give you 20% credit on your next event. That helped me close a lot of business.
What if
And
they bring like a professional hot dog eater or something?
what are they going to bring?
No.
100 of them? I mean, it's one, and then they're going to have a granny that eats nothing. I mean, you know your crowd. I mean, if we're going to do a factory, we'll bring extra food, and it's only based on the number of people you guarantee. You can't say, oh, we need a catering for 50 and 100 show up. We're not paying. We also did an on-timer, it's free guarantee, and we had our clients do that, that we coached, because people aren't buying food from you, they're buying lack of embarrassment. So your admin isn't getting a raise if today's lunch for the team meeting shows up on time. But if it's 30 minutes late, then she looks like you can't do something as simple as order lunch for the team. So they don't want to be embarrassed. So they'd rather have food that on a scale of 1 to 10 is an 8, but they show up on time, they're easy to deal with, than food that's a 10. And it's like that temperamental chef, right? Remember the soup Nazi and Seinfeld.
Yeah.
You don't want some pain in the ass caterer who's late. Yeah, but our food is great and you don't understand. It's like, yeah, I understand. My boss has important clients, you know, and lunch needs to be there so we can start serving at 12. I don't want to hear your stuff. So a guarantee is probably the biggest. And then I think the way the proposals look, like our graphics, like our actual, where it has a breakdown, actually you can color code the background to fit your your company and put your logo in there and personalize a little bit. The other thing is it doesn't take long to crank out a proposal, because the biggest problem is people need to go back and put together a proposal, and it takes forever. Literally, I could be on the phone with you right now and I can get your information and say, okay, what did you want? Oh, you want the taco bar? What meats do you want? Okay, I want the ground beef and I want the fish. Do you want black beans or regular beans? Do you want corn tortillas, flour tortillas? Do you want drinks, desserts? Boom, boom, boom. And I hit a button and it goes out. Like literally, it's all formatted out the door, because you don't have time. You don't make money making proposals. You make money selling food.
I want to come back to a feature later about from a delivery standpoint, because you've kind of integrated and helped people do that. But I want to stick on the direct response for a second and talk about Dan Kennedy, some of the lessons you learned from Dan Kennedy.
God, that would be like a week podcast interview. You're probably not going to expect this one. Are you familiar with this wealth attraction workshop?
No, is that from Dan Kennedy?
Yeah, he put on a wealth attraction workshop at some hotel in Denver, and he talked about sort of the psychology of money, and probably I got a lot of direct marketing. We can talk about that, but basically money has a brain and it goes where it's going to do the most good, if that makes sense. And, we're both of us are Jewish or Jewish. And so, you talk about tzedakah. If you're a Christian, you talk about tithing. In most religions, you talk about giving back. And I'm a big believer in giving back, because I think money does have a conscience and it goes where it knows it's going to do the most good. I have people that I know that doesn't matter what happens, they always have bad luck. They don't give money away. And I think money sort of knows, we're not going to show up on your doorstep because you're just going to waste it and pilfer it, but it's going to go over here because I know this person's going to be a good steward of it. Sounds corny. It's same thing with wealth. I learned that you save money and you build your savings. Murphy doesn't knock on your door. It's the person that has no money that the engine goes out in their car, their AC blows up. They just have one thing after another. And I know that sounds crazy and that's an oversimplification of his workshop, but it was phenomenal. As far as direct marketing, besides
real quick, Michael,
yeah.
I just want to, on that, Dan Kennedy, if anyone knows, he's a no BS type of person, right? So I remember him saying, and it wasn't a wealth attraction one, but I've seen him talk, and he talked about, I think he said, kind of the hole you give through is the hole you receive through. And like
exactly. Or the hand, a clenched hand, you can't receive it. If you're holding on to your money, you can't receive more money. So yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah. So anyways, I want to he's a no BS type of person. For him to kind of go in that, I don't know, it's like woo-woo, but it's definitely a different concept than like your hardcore direct marketing.
It's definitely more woo-woo, but it had a big impact on me and the way I live my life and the way I look at money. And I'm very humbled that I've been blessed to be able to help other people. And I don't think you have to necessarily give to a church or a synagogue or a mosque or some formal organization. It could be there's a homeless person and you're going to give them $20, or there's somebody working their ass off in a drive-through window at Christmas and you're just going to give them $100 for their family because they're barely making any money and you want to do something nice for somebody. So there's lots of ways that you can help people out.
So there's one of my friends, Tony Grebmeyer, he runs Ship Offers, and he pays for he goes in the Starbucks drive-thru and he'll pay for the person behind him every single time, just like whatever their order is. So it's like, hey, take care of the car behind me. And so I thought that was like it must be such an amazing surprise for that car to pull up and be like, oh, that person paid for you. So
yeah, I've done that before. You just got to hope you don't get the car that ordered, $100 of Starbucks for the office.
So talk about the direct response parts from Dan Kennedy.
Yeah. So probably the biggest lesson I learned, and I've sort of knew this, I'll tell you a really interesting story. I knew this instinctively as a kid. I mean, to tell you how funny the world is I used to go to bookstores. Like I wasn't into baseball or football and, sports or music. I was into business. I'd go to bookstores and buy books. I bought Dan Kennedy's books in college and read them before I even knew who he was. So I didn't reconnect with him for probably 10 years after I bought his books. So the first is niches, riches, and niches. And I've always done well in niches. In college, a friend of mine's father, my father's friend, who actually brought him over from France after a fire in his factory. My dad worked at the company that made the equipment, brought us over. The building was empty, and he let me use the parking lot for free during Memphis in May and all these festivals in Memphis. And I made a lot of money parking cars at $5 a car during a festival, back in the day, as they say. But the problem is if it rained, you wouldn't make any money. No one's coming to a festival when it rained. And this is sort of how you figure out niches. I'm going to give you two stories. Number one is if something happens, you say, okay, is this a one-off or is this leaving clues? So I had a barbecue team come to me and said, hey, could we just prepay for the whole weekend and have our own spot so we can come and go to the store and get supplies and beer and whatever? And I'm like, sure, $25 or whatever it was, right? Instead of $5, pay for 5 spots, right? And I'm like, damn, there's like 200 teams down on the river. So I went to the organizers the next year and said, hey, I've got a parking lot and I want to sell passes. And I wrote my first direct mail letter and basically said, parking issues. We all know what a pain in the ass to find a parking space, leave, try to come back, blah, blah, blah. I'm selling a weekend pass for $35. So I made more money pre-selling spots. And I knew that 15% of the spots I could churn because cars were going to be out, right? So I made way more money. Even if there was a tornado that hit the river, I had made my money. I went to Kinko's and I did these little placards you can hang, and I cut them out by hand and laid them out with my dot matrix printer and glued them up and whatever. So that was like a home run. And then when I had my restaurant, I was starting to study direct marketing from Jay Abraham, and we were doing some things with databases and whatever. And then the day after Thanksgiving, I got this order for like 200 and something people. And so I'm like, why is Dillard's department store ordering for 200? Like, what gives? Like, I didn't know what Black Friday was. I was 25-year-old dude. Like, I don't go shopping. Like, it's not my sport. Never even heard of the word Black Friday. So I called after the holiday weekend. I said, hey, I appreciate your order. How was it? Great. By the way, why did you order? Oh, it's Black Friday. It's the busiest shopping day. We order for all our employees, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, ding, every other one. So the next year, this is pre-internet, right? This is like your dad saying he walked uphill both ways in snow to school. I drove around to the 5 malls in Nashville, the area. And I took a yellow legal pad and I wrote down all the big employers, Circuit City, Dillard's, Castor Knot, Home Depot, Target. I went in a thing called the Yellow Pages, which I don't even know if the kids today even know what the Yellow Pages are. And I had to look up and call who's the HR director. And I sent out 45 letters. I followed up with a phone call. I booked $6,000 in drop-off catering. And this is probably going back to 1997, right? 1996. This is like a long time in today's dollars. The biggest that I ever got it up to was $12,000 in drop-off catering in one day. We had crews that would go out. I mean, it was like a military operation logistically getting this set up. So a lot of cool things in direct mail that I learned. Are you familiar with the X-ray mailer? Have you ever seen that?
I've sent the X-ray mailer before, yeah.
Okay. So for people that don't know
go ahead.
For people who don't know what the X-ray mailer is you can take, if people don't know what overhead transparencies are, but it's like clear film that your teacher would print on, and there'd be a projector, And you could do them by hand. You can run them off on a Xerox machine, a printer. And if you print the background in black and the letters in white, it looks like an X-ray film. And I think Bill Glazer came up with that idea. So we stole it. And there's a thing called Hospital Week. Have you ever heard of Hospital Week?
No.
Neither had I. So basically, all the hospitals, it's like, hey, it's Hospital Week. So they buy everybody food in the whole hospital, the nurses, the staff. It's 3 shifts. And so I got a list of all the hospitals, like there weren't even 20. The HR directors. It was an X-ray film, put it in a brown oversized envelope. X-ray film, do not bend, with a fluorescent envelope, fluorescent label. And I sent it out, followed up with a phone call. I maybe spent $40 on that promotion. I booked over $17,000 in catering. It was like,
I love it.
So cool.
I want to talk about what was in the letter to those places, but what I love about what you said, and I've sent those, the X-ray is cool when you pull it out, but what you just said, they're going to open the thing, right? And what I loved about that mailer is it said like X-ray confidential, do not bend. They're going to open it, right? Especially in that type of...
In a hospital, they're going to open it. If anyone is going to open it, it's going to be a hospital.
They're not going to throw that one in the trash. There's no possible way they're throwing that in the trash, right? And the first, it's like in direct response. Well, you got to get them to open it, right? If it's just like anything else, they
and
can
then
just
a headline,
garbage.
and then the sub headline. So I learned. I forgot who the guy I learned really to learn.
Joe Sugarman, was it?
No, there was a guy that had a 3-ring binder course on how to write copy. It was very simple. Maybe it was Brian something. I bought the reprint rights to it, so I probably have it someplace wherever. But it was very like, how to write a headline, how to write a sub headline, and just the PS, the hook, everything. And it was just a really good primer on how to write direct response copy. And I'm a really good copywriter. But even now, I'll admit I don't write copy anymore. I go to AI as a shortcut, and then I clean it up. It's just easier for me.
About like what you went around and you did research. You went to the Yellow Pages. You went around to these stores, and you ended up sending a letter to them. I'm wondering what was in the letter. I don't know if you remember, but because like this applies to even if someone's doing an ad on Facebook or LinkedIn. I mean, all this is direct response.
How to make your employees feel appreciated for less than an hour's worth of pay. And it's like, it's the busiest day of the year. You need your employees selling, not fighting the mall food courts to get fed or being out in traffic. And we'll bring it out. We'll leave insulated containers. We'll refill it for you. We're going to throw in dessert. We're going to throw in the hot boxes. We just, and by the way, we're going to give you a $25 gift certificate if you order from us. I mean, you speak to their pain point, right? In catering, we used to do all sorts of niches. CPA firms during tax time, they're bringing in food. I think we got a list of parents of high school seniors for graduation parties. And this is something that I'm building in my software. So I've forgotten more than most people will ever know. And I don't mean that to be pompous, but like I've tried everything. So when I had my restaurant, we had a promotion, and it was called Catering Giveaway, win a free lunch for 10 for your office. Now, the difference between a drawing and a giveaway, a drawing is you just pick one name out of the fishbowl. A giveaway is I'm going to give it away to whoever the hell I want to give it away to. So as opposed to a business card, you come in with a business card. Well, Jeremy, I don't know who you are, how big your office is. Why am I going to give you lunch for 10? And it's just Jeremy's Allstate, and there's 2 people in the office. I've wasted 10, right? So we had a form they had to fill out, which was, what's your name? What's your title? Where do you work? How often do y'all bring in lunch? For how many people? So you're qualified, and who's responsible for ordering in lunch? So I was talking with somebody in private equity who's in charge of a big restaurant chain, which I'm not going to mention, and she's charged with redoing their catering business because if you're a private equity company and you can juice sales by 10%, you've just increased the value of the company by 10%, right? It's huge. So we were talking. She says, "What would you do?" And I said, "Well, I would do this promotion." And then the way my head thinks is like, how do you plus this? If I were to do it today, I would do catering giveaway, nice sign, and I have a QR code. So we're going to build in our CRM that we're going to give them the form to fill out. You just scan a QR code. You don't have to sit there and fill out a piece of paper. You can do it at the table. You could do it when you get home. It'll go in a spreadsheet view in our software, and then you can decide, does this person get a sequence that they've won first prize of lunch for 10 to the person in charge of ordering catering? And if they're already a customer, they're not getting it because I'm not going to give a free lunch for 10 for an existing customer. And if they are, Jeremy's State Farm, then, hey, congratulations. Sorry, you didn't win first prize. You won second prize, $5 gift certificate when you come back in. So it's a phenomenal way to generate leads from your customers that requires basically no effing work. And so we'll build that into a paid version, like an enhanced version of our CRM. And we're also going to put in a business card scanner because a lot of these restaurants, we teach them, go out, do cookie drops or, some kind of food drop in the afternoon when people need some sugar or carbs. And then you get business cards. You think most salespeople are going to sit down at the end of the day and enter business cards? No. So we're going to put a business card scanner on our mobile order taking interface. It's for the operator, not online ordering. And then once you confirm all the fields, you put them in whatever groups you want to put them in the CRM, then you can enroll them in a sequence, right? So if I go out, I could say, hey, Jeremy, it was great meeting you today. I hope you enjoyed the brownies. By the way, as we discussed, your first order, you're going to get a $25 gift card to Corky's Barbecue if you order. Here's the online ordering link. Here's this, here's that. So it's a great way to just, you get business cards and boom, you put them in there.
Michael, I wanted to touch on one thing. We'd mentioned Dan Kennedy, obviously, as influential to your marketing and business. Another one, people are wondering, well, how the heck does he know all this? Well, Michael experienced all these pain points because he had catering, he had a restaurant, and you cut your teeth. One of my favorite parts of your story, which I don't think it's as highlighted as it should, is, obviously you had a barbecue restaurant, right? But when you first started, before you first started, you actually went to the owner and offered to work for free, essentially, and observe and learn. Talk about that point and some of the stuff you learned.
Yeah, let me take a bigger step back. So my first job was washing dishes because there were no other jobs to get. It was basically, we were in the high inflation rate in the early 80s, and there wasn't jobs to be had. There was a stack of applications this thick for a dishwasher position. But a buddy of mine was a busboy, and he got me in. I mean, could you imagine today, your kids saying, Dad, there's 20 guys up for this dishwasher job. You'd be like, what the heck? So I got the job there, worked my way up, and I've always been the guy that has a lot of ideas and give them to my bosses. And I don't like to work. Like, I never like working Saturday nights because that was sort of like date night, fun night. So I went to my boss at this restaurant and I said, they really work you hard around here. Why don't you let me do the busboy schedule for you and help you out? So I did the busboy schedules and I had control. And when I worked at Corky's, I did a lot of promotions and I was the one who got him shipping ribs. And, he's like a competitor was shipping ribs. And I said, Don, we should be shipping ribs like the Rendezvous. He goes, I don't know how to do it. I said, I'll figure it out. So I called the owner of the Rendezvous and I said, I'm doing a paper for a marketing class at Memphis State. Can I interview you about rib shipping? The guy gave me the blueprint. I mean, he didn't give me like every detail, but he gave me a high enough level. So I went out and got a real job after college, as everyone in the restaurant says, and I was in archive storage sales, which sucked. I hated it. And I just got married, just bought a house. Boss comes in and he says, Michael, you're just not hitting your numbers. Do you need another month? And I said, Russ, you should probably fire me today. And he said, I appreciate that. I'm going to give you a month's severance. I took all my stuff in a box, went in my car, cried. It was a relief more than anything else. And then I knew that Corky's was starting to franchise. I knew I could make good money waiting tables. So I said, I want to be one of the first people who gets a franchise. I'll work for free for half the day to learn the business because I don't know the kitchen. I don't know the operations. And then I waited tables and I talked somebody into backing me on the franchise. I mean, I also helped them write their franchise manual and open up one of the first franchises. So I know where you're headed with this story. I don't think kids today, just like kids today, don't get to go play out in the woods and skin their knees and build tree houses and, you know, all this cool stuff that we did as kids. I don't think a lot of kids would go out there and work for nothing to learn a business for an opportunity.
I love, though, you know, your kind of mentality of delivering value, you know, and then you knew you were going to learn the business and, you know, be successful, but delivering value and be like, listen, I mean, it's also goes back to your offer and your guarantee. Like you almost, what are they going to say? No, you can't work here for free. Right.
Right. Well, I mean, I had a plan. You know, my buddy and I had this saying in college. You know, you go out. I don't want to sound crass, but to pick up girls, meet girls. Like you ask 100 people a question, one person's going to say yes, right? And I go, you know what? If I ask 100 business people, someone will back me on this restaurant. Like one out of somebody, and it was probably number 27 to 30, and he had pulled out an ad from the Nashville paper that they were franchising Corky's. He loved West Tennessee barbecue. He had just sold his roofing business. And I had never opened, run, managed a restaurant. And he literally wrote $1 million check to back me. And my goal was not to make money. My goal was not to lose his investment. He made 25%, no less than a 25% return on that investment year after year, didn't have to do anything. Didn't have to worry about anything. And even today, I don't have goals like, you know, oh, we want to increase sales by 22%. We sort of have directions like, you know, how much do you need, right? Like, I don't, you know, I'm guessing you're successful-ish, successful. There's levels, right? Successful, you might be in the top 1%, but you could be the bottom 1% of the top 1%, because the top 1% of 1%, they're flying. Like I was just in London talking to someone at Harrods. Oh yeah, these two Saudi princes, they flew in on their jet. They got helicoptered over to Harrods. They bought $1.5 million diamond encrusted iPhones and flew back to Saudi Arabia or wherever they were from. I mean, there's levels of comfort and rich, right? So I'm comfortable. I can do what I want. My kids are off the payroll. So I don't have investors to pay back. You know, I just want to go in a direction and get pumped up about what I do every day, building software, making a difference for our clients and enjoying the journey, right? I don't want to kill myself. I want to be able to work and travel remotely. I just spent the month of July in Europe. And, you know, worked a little bit while I was there. I could run my company. So
talk about, you know, the owner of Corky's and some of the, I know he was a mentor of yours.
You know, he was more of a mentor. And I tell people that have kids this, your kids are paying attention. Whether you ever teach them a formal lesson or not, you are a walking, talking lesson of what to do or what they shouldn't do, right? I saw my parents what not to do. Work your ass off and not enjoy the journey. And then, you know, what, you want to be 70 years old before you can enjoy yourself. And so he worked his ass off. And so I learned work ethic, but I also learned like, I don't want to be working Saturdays and Sundays. Like, Yeah, you make a lot of money, but why are you making barbecue sandwiches at a festival? Like, you're the president of this company. You don't need to be doing this. And I saw his commitment to quality barbecue. I was at the point like I could be in the kitchen and I could just look at a plate of food and know whether it was perfect or not just by look, right? It's just it's like even today I go to a restaurant, I can just tell by looking at something. It's just the way it looks. You can tell. And I also know what's happening when I'm not in the restaurant or not in my business. And the same thing with the dating world. My buddies and I will have this conversation is there is a cadence in the world. And when the cadence is off, you know it, right? So I'm assuming you're married. Are you married, Jeremy?
Yep.
Yeah, you know when your wife's pissed off at you, right? Because you have a routine, you have a cadence, right? You get up in the morning, you make your coffee, you go do this, you do this. And if, oh, she texts you, something, it's something. And if she's not texting you or she's not doing this or you're not doing this, it's like, oh, what's wrong today? Because I normally, this is out of whack. And sometimes you can put your finger on it and sometimes you can't. He was quirky and he was funny. This guy, you would never know he had money. He came from money. He was a junior golfer. He played against Jack Nicklaus in high school. Great golfer. His son was a great tennis player. Great family. But he drove when he had Corky's. He drove this piece of shit Corolla, and he'd say, "Michael, go take this delivery for me." I'd slam on the brakes at the light, and a bottle of Old Spice would roll out from underneath the front of the car. Like, could you imagine? Like, of course, Warren Buffett would wear Old Spice because he goes to McDonald's, and probably buys coffee there, not Starbucks. So he was just a very quirky guy, but I learned the value of, he was a phenomenal marketer. I learned the value of catering, how important that is to a restaurant. And I also credited him with the software company because I've always been looking to solve problems. My whole life, I've been a problem solver, right? And I remember I'm rolling silverware and I had 3 girls on the phone answering, taking catering orders. And this is like really when computers are starting to come out, people would have like an IBM on their desk and they would load software or whatever. And what's your name? What's your company? What's your address? What's a credit card number? They would write everything by hand. And if you ordered 5 days a week, you're giving them that information 5 days a week. And then at the end of the day, the manager would sit there and add up, okay, on this order, Jeremy needs 10 pounds of brisket, 10 pounds of ribs, needs this. And they did it by hand. And I'm like, God, if I knew how to do something in DBase 3 Plus, I could build a simple program for this. So I had this idea way before I launched it. And the fact I was able to launch it for 30 grand is like, it's like winning the lottery.
You're making me hungry thinking about all this, but what finally made you decide, okay, I'm gonna finally launch a software?
So I started the info product business in 97. This is really an interesting story. So I get a direct mail piece from the Postal Service saying they're doing a direct mail seminar. They sent me an oversized, the priority envelope. And I was like, I know like response rates are 0.5%, right? And I was getting like 10%, 20%, really high response. And I called the person up. I go, I don't know who's speaking of this, but can I speak? Because I've got these great things. He goes, well, you have to be approved vendor, blah, blah, blah. They came in, they had lunch, and I had a notebook with all my promotions and the recaps. And I go, man, we need to get you on this agenda. So I did some PowerPoint slides and I had somebody turn them for me. This is before projectors, really. And it was such a high to speak. Now, I was nervous, like my stomach was in knots speaking, but it was fun. And I said, well, there's the barbecue convention coming up in February, March of 97. So I said, hey, do you want me to speak at the event? They go, sure. It was free. And I just had been to enough seminars. I go, well, everybody who speaks has something to sell at the back of the room. So I did 2 audio interviews on cassette tapes. And I took all my winning examples. I put them in a 3-ring binder. And I took the ads and I put them on 3 3.5-inch floppies, the hard floppies,
Yeah.
3.5. And I sold it for $99 for the package. I closed 25% of the room. It's like, shit, I just walked away with $1,100 in an hour. Like, this is way better than making barbecue sandwiches. So by the time I got out of the info business, I was selling $1,500 courses on how to double your profits with catering. I had a coaching group. I had an audio newsletter prior to podcasts. That's what they were. You sent out a CD-ROM. I had a written newsletter. And what I quickly realized about the guru business, there's a beginning, middle, and an end that very few people can survive the test of time. Because you know what? Once I've heard Jeremy talk about podcasts for 2 years, I've heard everything you have to say, and I'm done, and I'm ready to go find somebody else as my guru. I need residual income, and I've always loved licensing. I learned this from Paul Zane Pilzer in college, reading Inc. magazine, talking about the first book you write is $50,000. The second book costs you $2. You know, somebody, the Beatles record an album, it costs $1 million. For the first album they sell, the second album is $1.52. And I love software. I didn't know anything about software. And I went to two of my competitors because there really wasn't catering software for restaurants. It's a different animal because it's really quick, small dollar size. You got to get people on and off the phone and all this stuff. Went to two competitors and I said, hey, you really don't cover restaurants. Would you license me your software so we can build a version for restaurants? They both turned me down. They have since tried to acquire me multiple times. I'm in contact with the private equity firms that own both of them. So I find that pretty cool. And then I went to a guy that I was friends with, and he had an online ordering company software that he had built. He also had a dev shop. And we had referred him, when I was in the info business, I referred him business, not a ton, but I referred him some business. And I said, hey, would you build me software? Like, I need your online ordering is maybe 5% of my software. Would you build this software for me? He goes, at first he was like, well, I don't really want you to use my online ordering. I said, look, I'm not doing takeout. Like, I'm not competing with your niche. This is just for catering. He said, okay. So I did my screenshots with Excel. Like, this is the workflow. These are the tabs I want. Took 2 years to build, cost me $30,000. And he was nice enough to basically charge me per license per month. So I didn't have to invest in all this infrastructure. And that's how I was able to launch it. And literally I bootstrapped it with nothing. And I feel I was ahead of the curve based on where we are now. And, it's grown and grown and grown.
Michael, talk about enterprise for a second. You've always been really good at, you mentioned this even from the direct responses, hitting the pain points, finding the need and serving those need. And I know you have enterprise clients with CaterZen. What's you found different that need to be in CaterZen for those enterprise clients?
Well, we pivoted in enterprise because the enterprise leader got acquired. And then it's not so advantageous in the marketplace to use their software. And so we saw that eventually there was going to be an opportunity where people are going to look for somebody else to service their needs than this company because they got acquired. And I don't want to get into all the background. And so the biggest thing is managing multiple units, whether it's reporting, pricing. So here's a perfect example. If it's Jeremy's Deli, it's simple. You want to change your prices. You go in and say the corned beef sandwich is not $9.95, it's $11.95, and you change the price. Well, what happens if you have 100 stores? Are you going to change 100 prices? So you have to do tier pricing. Most chains have tiered pricing. So am I in a tier 1 city, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5? Some have 3, some whatever. So now I don't have to change the prices for 100 stores. I just have to assign their tier level. And then when I change all the tier 2 pricing, it automatically updates, right? The same thing with reporting. If you have 3 delis, you could look at all 3 stores together, combine, whatever. Well, what if you have regions and subregions and stuff? kind of thing. So there's been more, it's more about the reporting, taking orders, like, if you have a phone team, how do you take orders when you have all these stores? So it's just building tools, a more robust CRM. Like we had a good CRM for catering software, but when you're working with a big chain and they have call centers, well, we come from the background that you assign a call to a person, right? It's Jeremy's client. He's going to call him back on Monday to see how the wedding go, right? Michael's client, I'm going to call Tuesday. How'd the event go last night? What if you have a call center and now you need 100 people called from this weekend, but I'm not going to assign them. I'm putting it to the group, right? It's assigned to the group, and then anybody in the group is going to see this is something, and whoever grabs it, right? And then you have to have the reporting. I need to see what Jeremy did. I need to see what Jeremy's call center did. I want to listen to the recording of the call. There's just a lot of moving parts and pieces, that you have to keep adding. A lot of sales reporting, there's just a lot of moving parts and pieces that it has more to do with managing multiple locations than the core functionality is still there. It's more, how are we going to slice and dice the data?
Yeah. Michael, first of all, I want to be the first one to thank you. I want to encourage people to check out CaterZen.com to learn more. I don't care if you're in a restaurant or not in a restaurant, definitely check out the resources page. He has several books because these things apply to everyone. Catering Multipliers, the 17 no-cost laws of catering sales growth. He also had the book Cater or Die, the step-by-step plan for doubling your catering profits. Now, obviously, you've been great on the niche part, but those concepts and principles apply to any business. Obviously, if you are, in need of CaterZen, then just go to CaterZen.com as well, or share it with someone else. But Michael, thank you so much for joining me. This has been fantastic.
I've had a great time, Jeremy. Thanks for including me.
Thanks, everyone.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I feel like 100 grand.